How come did you start using POP? Can you tell us a little bit about the code and kind of service that you receive?
Yes, so I've been working on GS2, which is a code for simulating turbulence in plasma. It's a code that sort of is understood to scale to maybe like 3,000, 4,000 cores, but we would really like to use it to simulate larger experimental systems than we do currently. It's been used to simulate current fusion reactors, but we would like to use it to simulate ITER, which is going to be roughly a factor of 2 larger at each dimension. And the code doesn't scale to the kind of process counts where you could simulate this really large system. So POP was brought in to identify problems in the code to try to localize where the bottlenecks were, with the understanding that because this is an MPI code with kind of a difficult set of layouts, probably there would be some problem in the MPI, and POP might be able to help find that. So POP was brought in to do a report on this, and I came in just at the tail end of that when you were coming back and explaining what the bottlenecks in the code were and what the results of that report were. So I got to sit in on that last sort of handover meeting, which I found very helpful. Went into a lot of detail about it. Sort of we're trying to really explain what you had found and leave us in a position on the code that we could go further with it. So I came in for that last meeting, having sort of just begun working on the code, and NAG was helpful enough to give me training in the tools that were used actually to make that report, in the profiling tools, because it was this code is sort of obviously a code that's bound by MPI problems. I was taught how to use one of the a profiler that is useful for showing MPI communication problems. So I got basically organized a half-day workshop to teach this tool, and then also have been quite responsive with questions when I've had questions about how to use the tool or sort of how to get started on this code. And then I've been taking that work on further.
So this is I imagine that this is a huge code, right? And there are many developers working on it. So how come was it that like somebody outside this domain could analyze and give you, and you find that very helpful, right? So there are always domain experts that they have developed their own code. So sometimes they feel like they know what's wrong about the code, right? And so how was this exercise of asking somebody from outside to look at your code, basically? I get the impression that that gives you the starting point for the optimization,
right? Yeah, so this code has a number of different components in it, and various people have optimized various parts of them at different times. So I think at different times, different components in the code have been a problem, and because of the nature of that code, there are some complicated choices that you can make in terms of the way that you lay out your data to target different parts of the code. And what having this kind of general POP report gave us was an idea of sort of where we were at this point, which component, which other components had been optimized and which component was now the problem. So as I was coming in, the main report out from NAG was that basically the field step 1 part of this code was really obviously dominating the runtime in the kind of typical layouts that we were running. And that's why I started working on that part of the code.
And so then the POP basically helps you to identify where you need to work on the POP, and then you can, in your code, and then you can go ahead and work on it. How much experience did you have before? So if somebody wants to use this service, do they need a little technical expertise, or do they receive what they need basically as a starting point?
I had some experience in HPC, a little experience in the tools, but not very much. So I think getting some sort of direct communication with NAG helped a lot. So I think we talked for a fair while, kind of handing over what the results of the code were. So I think Sally was able to explain kind of to the level that we could understand what had been, what the conclusions of the code had been. So as I said, I had some idea of MPI and HPC, so she was able to explain to me sort of in that context, and then also some of the other developers on the code are more specialists in the domain.
And how much time, now that you have been working, because as I understand you have worked on this code for 2 years, and you have been trying different ways to optimize it and so on. So if you didn't have that initial help, how much longer do you think how much longer would we for you to find what is the problem and how to solve it and everything?
There's certainly, it would be a very different investigation, I think, if it weren't sort of started off by NAG. Because I think the profiling tools that I was using really do need someone to get you started using them. And because those tools let you visualize communication patterns without being able to see what was going on in this particular code, I think it would have been very difficult to know where the problems were and to get an idea of even what was really going on in the code, because it's a code that's been developed for a long time. The images of what is happening help you to understand actually what is going on in the code and what optimization choices have been made in the code. So without those images, I think it would have been much more difficult to be able to tackle the code. And I think the other part is just because there are so many different versions, it's very possible that we would have gotten distracted by looking at sort of a completely different component of the code, which has also been optimized a lot and has had a lot of work on it, but which wasn't maybe the main problem. Whereas getting a really clear result out from the POP report that this particular component and that the MPI communication in that component was a problem was a focusing factor.
That's good to hear. So what is the next step in terms of optimization, or maybe using POP again? Or
so I'm kind of wrapping up this 2 years work that I've been doing on it following from that report. Having made some progress on it, especially I think aided by being able to explain what I've been working on and occasionally talking to people at NAG as well about it. I'm hopeful that will lead to some kind of breakthrough improvements in the code. There are also a number of different versions of the code to look at, so I'm not sure if once kind of my optimizations are wrapped up, if we start looking at the next part of the code that's so with the changes that I'm making to the code, it may be that now a completely different part of the code is a problem, and it's worth kind of going back and doing kind of a general overview look at the code again. Hopeful that it really has sort of changed and that maybe the problem is in another area, but we'll see.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Good luck.